Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could make it because we are just getting rolling here at Celebrate Sausage. We've got about 20 episodes left, and if you're joining us right now for the first time and you're not really quite sure what's happening, I'm going to put a playlist at the end of this video right about here so that you could go back to the beginning of Celebrate Sausage Season 6 and see what you've been missing. In today's episode, we're going to be making the second recipe submission from a longtime patron and producer of the Two Guys in a Cooler channel, Larry Kapigian. If you missed Larry's other recipe submission, the gyro sausage, that was episode 4 for season 6. I'll put a link to it in the description box below. Incredible sausage, especially when you add it with that homemade pita, that tzatziki sauce, just absolutely delicious. Well, today we're going to be making the Mexican Tamale Sausage, another Larry Kapigian original. And let's talk about the name for a minute because I feel like that might cause a little confusion in the comment section. The reason it's called the Mexican Tamale Sausage is because this is an American creation. Thank you, Larry. If it were a Mexican creation, it would more than likely be called the Tamal Chorizo de Mexico. But currently that doesn't exist. So there we go, the Mexican tamale sausage. And let me just tell you, I have yet to make this recipe. I will say, after reading the recipe that was submitted to me by Larry, there are a lot of moving parts. But if this recipe is anything like Larry's other submissions, it's going to be worth it. Let's make the Mexican tamale sausage. Our tamale sausage is going to be delivering that classic 70-30 experience. So this is a 100% pork sausage. And if you would like to make this sausage with beef, you could do that, or a combination of pork and beef. The 70-30 experience is 70% lean and 30% fat. Notice my fat is already cut up into small pieces. I tend to buy quite a bit of back fat, cut it up, stick it in the freezer, and then just pull it out whenever I need it. It just makes things easier. As far as the pork, you could use any type of pork. I'm using pork shoulder. You could use pork belly if you can't get your hands on back fat. But at the end of the day, you want to try to achieve 70% lean, 30% fat, or whatever. You could do 20% fat if you want to cut back on it. There we go. Everything's cut up into nice little pieces, perfect for the grinder. And we want this chilled, so that's going to go into the freezer as we take a look at phase 2 of this recipe. Now, if you haven't made any of Larry's recipes, they are a bit on the involved side, but well worth it. We've got trotters, we've got some pork bones, and what we're going to do with this is just put that into a small pot with water, a couple bay leaves, a little onion, peppercorn. You can add whatever you want here. I'm adding some oregano. If you want to add garlic, you can add garlic. We're going to take this and bring it to a simmer and let it cook covered for a couple hours. We have some peppers that I've dried in our dehydrator. Now, you could buy these peppers from the grocery store, your Mexican supermarket, and they're not quite dried enough to make a powder out of them. And so I took those same peppers, put them in our dehydrator, and now we have a powder. But if you can get the powdered version of these peppers, you can skip this step. We have guajillo, chili ancho, that's the one in the middle. And right here on the right-hand side, we have the pasilla chili. And I'm just going to use our mortar and pestle and get to grinding. All right, we've got our chili powder, and the recipe link in the description box below will have the exact measurements of everything that you need. This is the stock that we've been cooking. Right at the last minute, I happen to have some pork skin in the freezer that I was going to make chicharrones with. And you know what? I decided to throw it in because what I'm looking for is a very collagen-rich stock with a beautiful pork flavor. Next ingredient is the chile poblano. This same pepper dried is called chile ancho, but we're using the fresh version and we're going to roast it. It's going to bring a completely different flavor. So we're going to take these and stick them on live fire until they turn completely black. We want them to basically char, and that's going to give us that beautiful roasted element. You can do this on the stovetop like I'm doing here. You can do it in your oven, or you can do it in your pit. However you choose to do it, this is the end result. And once they come off the fire, we're going to cover that little bowl with some cling film. I want to sweat these for about half an hour. That's going to allow that skin to come off a whole lot easier. So we're going to set that to the side while it does its thing. And 30 minutes later, we can now complete the roasted pepper portion of this recipe. To remove the skin, you can use your finger, right, like I'm doing here. You could scrape it with a spoon. However you choose to do it, you just want all that black charred skin off of the pepper, and you'll also want to remove the stem and the seeds. By the time you're finished, you should only be left with that beautiful green roasted bell pepper flesh. Now, the recipes are going to call for a specific amount, and that's where we're weighing out right here. As far as cutting this up, we're just going to cut this up into relatively uniform pieces. I want the pieces to be similar sized to the other ingredients. So the tamale masa, the Oaxaca cheese. But if you want to make yours a little smaller, a little bigger, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Let's look at phase 3 of this recipe. This is our tamal masa. Maseca is a pretty popular brand of yellow corn flour. This is nixtamalizada. That's what you're going to be looking for. If you want to go with something a little different, you can always go blue corn flour or red corn flour. The flavor's not too different, but notice both of these say nixtamalized. That's a great benefit to not only flavor, but also texture when you're making the tamal masa. We're going to go with blue tamal for our masa. But in addition to blue tamal, we're going to need a binder. And so I think I may go with the yellow corn flour. You know what? I have it. Let's go with the red. So we're going to go blue and red for the corn flours. But honestly, it does not matter. You could use yellow. You're not going to get, a lot of flavor difference. And I don't even think it's going to make that big of a color difference, to be honest. So use whatever you want. To make the masa for the tamal, we're going to start by adding a little bit of water to that corn flour and give it a little mix. What I'm looking for is a combination of water and flour so that the final texture of the dough ball holds together but can easily break apart without being crumbly. All right, does that make sense? We're going to show you what that looks like here in a second. Notice right now it's still very crumbly. At this point, I don't want to add too much water at a time. Just a little bit. All I want to do is bring it together, and notice how we have a dough ball that's not falling apart. It's also not sticky. That's important. And when you break it, just like this, I'm going to break. It should give us a clean break and without being, there it is. It shouldn't be crumbly. So that's what I'm looking for at this step. That's the perfect amount of water for me to proceed with my tamal recipe. This is actually a great stage also for if you're making corn tortillas. There's our collagen-rich stock. I just took it out of the fridge. This is going to give us not only a beautiful flavor, but a richness to this sausage that you otherwise wouldn't get. I do need to kind of melt that down a little bit. The ingredients to make this tamal masa is going to be salt and a touch of baking powder. We're also going to be adding savory, right? That's going to boost the umami, boost the flavor. It's going to be delicious. Optional ingredient, but if you have it, definitely add it. No question about it. We're also going to be adding pork lard. So I'm making a much smaller batch than I would typically make. This is much easier to do if you make a larger batch, but in this case, this is just a very tiny batch. We've got freshly rendered pork lard, and that's the most traditional fat for your tamal masa. I hate to even say what I'm about to say, but if you absolutely need to, you could use vegetable shortening. I immediately regret it. Oh, wow. Shame on me. All right, we're going to whip that with the whisk attachment on our KitchenAid mixer until it gets very aerated. It's going to increase in volume, and notice how it's turned snow white at this point. We're going to slowly start to add the masa that we've made back in. These additions are going to be slow, and we're going to make each addition once the one before it has been fully incorporated. We're going to add our salt, our savory. You could use chicken stock if you want. It won't be as good, but definitely an option. And then, of course, the baking powder and the stock that the recipe calls for. So when you add your stock, you're going to see that your masa is going to start to turn very loose. It's going to almost resemble that of a slurry. And the end result should be that of like a very thick hummus. So right now that's a little too loose. We're going to add some more of the prepared masa. And there will be a recipe for this tamal masa in case you want to follow along. The end result, like I said, should be that of a thick hummus when you're done. Mix it on high for about 30 seconds. You're trying to incorporate a little bit of air. We want this to be light and fluffy, and this is a perfect example of what yours should look like. When you run your spatula through the batter, it should leave the peaks and valleys that your spatula makes, so watch this. Absolutely perfect. One test to know if your masa is light and fluffy, and like I said, you don't have to do this because this recipe is pretty forgiving with that, but take a spoonful and toss it into a cup of cool water, and it should float. If your masa floats, that means it's ready. It is absolutely perfect. If your masa sinks, that means it's too dense. But like I said, I wouldn't worry about it too much because the way we're using the masa, as you'll see here in a minute, it is pretty forgiving. We're going to spread the masa that we've just prepared onto a silpat mat. What we're doing here is we're literally going to be steaming the masa. So I want it pretty thin. I don't want it too thick on that mat. Notice I'm putting it on a grating, and then that grating is going to go into a baking pan so that we can steam it. You do not have to do this. You can put that into the oven just like that and it will cook. But I wanted that really authentic steamed masa experience inside of our tamal. And this is what it looks like after it's steamed for probably about 30, 45 minutes, something like that. There we go. So our masa is completely cooked at this stage, ready to go. Let's just remove it from this section, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. We're going to be adding the cooked masa to this sausage recipe. I've made this recipe a few different times, and we tried a couple variations on how we added the masa, and the cooked version is the absolute best. And check that out. Perfectly cooked tamal masa. Made me wish I had a little barbacoa I could eat it with. But we need to freeze this because we're going to be adding this to our sausage frozen. And this just came out of the freezer, so we're going to chop it up into little pieces. The addition of this masa needs to be frozen when it gets added, otherwise we kind of lose that element through the process. So into the freezer it goes while we get our grinder set up. Now for this sausage, we're going to be going with the classic 6mm grind. You do want to make sure it's sharp. The holes on the plate should be a bit grabby. If they're not, if they're very smooth, you should definitely give it a sharpen. You can check out that video, top right-hand corner, if you'd like to know how to do that. Beautiful grind, and the hard work is officially behind us. If you're still with me, get ready because you're about to get your reward. Let's look at the seasoning profile for this tamal sausage. We've got our tamal masa, nice and frozen. We're going to be adding this at the very end of the process to not, screw up the structure of that masa. There's our binder. We're using the red masa, but like I said, you could use whatever color you want. It doesn't matter. We're going to be adding 2% to this recipe, and honestly, you could use whatever binder you want, but using masa is actually going to give it a very unique flavor that's going to work great for this recipe. There's our collagen-rich stock, and notice that it's still quite chunky. I need to melt it down, but I don't want it hot. I still want it cold. And look, if you don't want to go through the process of making a collagen-rich stock, you could use regular water, you can use chicken stock, or you could use beer. I mean, technically, if you wanted to. There's our roasted poblano peppers, ready to go. And then there's our Oaxaca cheese, cubed up, ready for the mince. If you can't get Oaxaca cheese, you can always use string cheese. That's pretty similar. This is what Oaxaca cheese looks like. It's like the Mexican version of string cheese. Slightly different flavors, a little more funky, but anyway, string cheese works for this recipe, no big deal. For the flavor profile, we're looking at salt, Insecure number 1. We're going to be smoking this sausage. That's why we're using Insecure number 1. If you don't want to smoke this sausage, you can omit that ingredient. It'll be just fine. We're also going to be adding a little black pepper and then some garlic powder. I've got some mustard powder, cumin seed that's been toasted and ground, a tiny bit of oregano, and then here's the 3 chilies that we ground into a powder. Yummy. There's our Savor Ye. Beautiful addition to this already incredible sausage. That's what we're looking at for the Mexican Tamale Sausage. Now all we got to do is mix it together. So the first thing that goes in is the meat, and then we're going to be adding the spices. I do like to have my meat partially chilled during this step, roughly about 36, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. In goes the stock. Next up, we're going to be adding the Oaxaca cheese and the poblano peppers. We're just looking for a sticky batter. That's all we're looking for at this step. Once we get there, we are done. I'm going to grab a small handful, flip the hand upside down, and if it hangs there, we are sticky. That's all I'm looking for, is for that batter to stick to the underside of my hand, and that is absolutely beautiful. This just simply means that we've achieved a level of protein extraction that is going to give us a beautiful bind on this sausage. Final step here is to fold in the frozen masa. I just took this out of the freezer, and we're adding 10% of the cooked masa. Gently folding it in. Nice and easy. Once it's folded in, you are completely finished. And let me just tell you, the smells coming from this sausage are so reminiscent of my abuelita's house on Tamal Day in Monterrey, Mexico. Woo! Okay, 3/4 inch horn on the sausage maker's 5-pound sausage stuffer. We want to tamp it down, make sure we get rid of any air pockets. I really think those poblano peppers are going to just take this to a whole different level. The casing is a 29-32 millimeter casing from the sausage maker. soaked in water overnight, and a little bit of baking soda has been added to that water. We're going to wet the horn and then just put a little bit of water inside that casing. Check out the translucency on my fingers. I could tell you right now that when a casing is translucent like that, rather than opaque, you stand a good chance at getting that snappy casing. If the casing is too opaque or too thick, it's a little more complicated. All right, let's get it stuffed. Let's make our links. We're going to go 6-inch links, and we're going to twist 3 times forward every other link. Give it a little squeeze. If you feel like it's firm enough, you can move on to the next link. If it's a little soft, twist it a couple more times. It'll tighten it back up. This link we're going to skip. The next link, pinch with my right hand till my fingers touch, and then twist it 3 times forward. That little pinch step helps so that you don't get casing blowout. So I give it a little pinch, and then 3 times forward. Once we're finished making the links, I'm going to set it on a rack. You don't have to set it on a rack. I do like to set it on a rack, though, because it helps airflow on the top and bottom when I place this in the fridge. And I'm going to take a sausage pricker and just prick out any air pockets. Pricking out the air pockets allows the casing to stick to the meat a little bit better. If you don't, you're going to have pockets of air. When you cook your sausage, you're going to have rendered fat. That's inevitable. The rendered fat will pull in those pockets of air, and it will cause the casing to separate from your meat, and it could lead to a chewy casing. Not all the time, but it could. Loving the masa. I'm loving the poblano peppers, the cheese. I mean, this is just an absolutely beautiful sausage. It smells very festive, just like a Mexican tamal. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator overnight. Let the cure get to work. Let those flavors come together. The following day, this is what our sausage looks like. It is now ready to cook. So they've dried just a little bit. The twists have definitely dried up. And we are going to smoke these. If you want to cut these into links and cook them horizontally, that's great. We're going to be hanging this on a sausage rack in our Smokin' It smoker. The smoker that we have is a convection digital smoker, and we've found that it just cooks sausage amazing. We do a lot of stuff in it, but if I had to be honest, sausage is probably the main thing that we cook in our smoker. So let's load it up. This is a Model 4 Smokin' It smoker, digital Wi-Fi convection. And notice that my sausage is pretty dried out. It's been sitting out at room temperature for a little while. If it's very glistening or wet, you're going to want to let it dry a little while. But in our case, we don't need to. So we're going to just go ahead and begin the process. I do want to use a meat probe because part of our programming is determined by the temperature of the meat. So we're going to insert that probe to where it's reading right in the center of that sausage. The cold smoke generator from Smokin' It is what I typically use when I'm smoking sausage because it allows me to add smoke a lot sooner than if I were to use the wood box. So I typically start adding smoke at around 125 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll just give these a nice steady stream of smoke for a couple of hours. I will say that using a convection smoker cooks your sausage a lot faster, and so if you don't have a convection smoker, the recipe link in the description box below will have alternate cooking instructions. We're going to set our convection. And let's take a look at the programming. This is what's great about this particular smoker. It's digital and we can control the program. So step number 1, that's where I'm at now, is 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to hover there for about an hour and a half. We're adding smoke as we speak. Step number 2, the smoker is going to automatically bump to 150. It's going to hang there for another hour and a half. And at that point, the sausage is almost going to be done. Step number 3, the smoker is going to bump up to 170, and it's going to stay at that temp until the internal temperature of our sausage gets to 145 Fahrenheit. Finally, step number 4, the smoker is going to back down to 145, and it's set to hang out there for about an hour. I do not leave it in there for an hour. Honestly, max I usually leave it in there for is about 5 or 10 minutes, but I have that step as a warming step so that in the event I'm not home, I don't burn my sausage. A cold water bath cools the sausage down pretty quickly. We want the temperature of our sausage to be under 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to keep the sausage from shriveling up. And as I give it a squeeze right now, we have a beautifully plump sausage. Can't wait to bite into it. An optional step after a water bath is a blooming step, and that's simply where you take your sausage, put it at room temperature on a rack, and just let it hang out.
for a couple of hours. This helps bring together the smoke and the spice flavors, mellow everything out. It's also going to affect the color slightly. It could make it a little more darker, turn it into a rich mahogany. Totally optional though. You don't have to do that. I took these sausage, popped them in the oven to heat them back up, brought them to an internal of about 145, and that's what we're looking at right here. And this is absolutely gorgeous. This is really the moment of truth. I can't wait to dive into it because all of these ingredients are absolutely delicious. I'm going to see how that slice looks. Oh, wow. Nice. Every element of this recipe is showing up in that slice. There's the tamal, masa. You've got the Oaxaca cheese, the green poblano peppers. It's very juicy, very aromatic too. I'm definitely picking up the smoke, all of those classic tamal flavors. I mean, just look at that. If you heat this up to 145, you won't have a problem with your cheese melting out.
All right, guys, we've got our Mexican tamale sausage. Just one last little peek here. Look at that. Just absolutely gorgeous. Very juicy, loaded with roasted poblano peppers, Oaxaca cheese. We've got tamal masa. Wow, that smells right. That smells so good. It smells like I'm in my abuelita's house and they're in the process of steaming, not making, but steaming tamales. Just that, so reminiscent. It's very nostalgic, actually. Woo! We smoked it, came through nicely on the casing. Casing is also very taut, stuck well, and I bet you we're going to get a nice snappy bite. We'll find out here in a second. This sausage was an original creation from Larry Kapigian. Larry has now contributed to the Celebrate Sausage series with his own unique recipe creations for several years now. And I'm going to put a link in the description box of not only Larry's Instagram, be sure to follow him. He's got all kinds of things going on, but I'm also going to put a link to previous video tutorials of unique recipes that Larry has submitted to Celebrate Sausage. So far, they have all been out of the park home runs. I haven't tasted this yet, but by the way that it smells, I got a pretty good feeling. Now, I just want you to know, this isn't the first iteration of this particular sausage that I've made. I've made it a couple of times because Larry and I were trying to figure out what's the absolute best way to incorporate the masa and get that genuine Mexican tamal flavor. Now, Larry had one idea. I had a completely different idea. My idea didn't work, and it was a disaster. And we put our heads together, and this was the end result. And so how we prepared the masa in today's video, the one you see here, we both thought, I'm about to taste it, I haven't tasted it yet, we both thought that it would deliver the most authentic Mexican tamale experience. Here we go, the Mexican tamale sausage. Wow. The spice profile is perfect. The flavor that just the sausage, let's not add anything else to it, just the sausage is delivering is off the charts. I'm definitely getting that savory boost of meatiness, umami. The chilies are adding just that beautiful flavor, the guajillo, the ancho, those dried peppers that we added to it. And then of course, you've got the additions, right? Oaxaca cheese. It's not oozing out all over the place, but it's soft, it's creamy. You get that slight funkiness from the Oaxaca. Roasted poblano is going to do what roasted poblano is going to do. I'm a huge fan of roasted poblano pepper, so you add it to a sausage, it's going to be absolutely amazing, especially when it has those, south of the border flavors already going for it. And then you have the tamale masa. That flavorful, fluffy masa that just wraps whatever's inside of it like a warm, cozy, delicious blanket. Wow. This actually embodies the spirit of a Mexican tamal. It's delicious. And like I said, I'm so glad that we smoked it. I wasn't going to smoke it. I was originally going to steam it, all right, like you do a tamale. And then I changed my mind with steaming, and then we were going to poach it, and then we were going to do a sous vide thing, and I was kind of working through the elements. Do I want that, barbecue flavor? Maybe we'll throw it on the pit. And we settled for the smoker. Each method would deliver its own flavor, don't get me wrong, and maybe they're all good in their own way, but having that additional smoke layer just complements all of the other flavors going on in this sausage. I mean, to me, it's almost reminiscent of, I would say chorizo de campo, but a tamal de campo, because it has that tamale forward element. And that has everything to do with the masa as a binder. And it doesn't matter if you use red, blue, yellow, it doesn't matter. It's all the same flavor. And then, of course, there's that flavor of the, traditional lard-based masa, which fluffs up when you cook it. It's nice, it's soft, it's seasoned perfectly. And you're getting all of that inside of this beautiful little package. This is delicious by itself, but if you want to eat this in a tortilla with a little lime juice, cilantro, absolutely amazing. Maybe slice it up, toss it in a dish with frijoles emborrachados, or maybe some Spanish rice. I don't think it matters. I mean, honestly, it's that good. Great texture. Very well bound together, super juicy. Using masa as a binder, it's a very interesting binder to use because it helps retain a lot of moisture. It's going to soak up some of that extra moisture, but it's also going to soak up a little bit of that oil. So if you happen to have some fat render, it will also do a relatively good job soaking up a little bit of fat. So you kind of get it on both ends with the masa. The only problem with masa as a binder is that it does impart a very unique flavor, which for this sausage works perfectly. Also, if you're going to make like a chili sausage, it would work great in a chili sausage. But I don't think it would work in all recipes. I hope you get a chance to make the Mexican Tamale Sausage. Absolutely delicious. Another fun creation by none other than Larry Kapigian. I'm going to put a recipe link in the description box below and also a link to Larry's Instagram. Be sure to follow him and check out what he's up to next. If you have any questions about this recipe, or if you have any unique ideas on how you could take this particular process and make it your own, I'd love to hear about them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's episode, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. How are you doing? We're in the middle of making sausage. I'm glad you could join us. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet and that notification bell, take a second to go ahead and do it now, because we are uploading every single day in the month of October. If you like sausage, you're going to love what's coming down the pipe, especially tomorrow. Same time, same place. Don't miss it. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Wow. Wow, that's good.